Hello, my name is Darren from Study Perth, and I'm going to answer some questions that people have asked us about the state government's International Student ELICOS Bursary for Semester 2 2022. To give you some background, the bursary is a one-off payment of $1,500 for all international students who started studying an English language course here in WA since 28th of June this year. The bursary is being paid by the state government to the first 2,000 students who are eligible, and it's being paid through the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation. Now, students who arrived in Perth in Semester 1 this year were eligible for a similar payment. But if you were in Perth studying in the first half of 2022, whether or not you got the payment, you can't apply this time. This subsidy is only for new students to Perth who start their courses in Semester 2. Now, people ask us what the purpose of the ELICOS bursary is. And broadly, it's to help international students pay their fees for the course that they've chosen to study. But they don't need to spend the bursary on the fees exactly. If you are eligible for the payment, you'll get the money paid into your bank account, and you can actually choose how you spend the $1,500. It is really to offset the course fees that you have to pay. Now, another question people ask is, how do we know if we're eligible for the $1,500 payment? Well, the first thing I would suggest is that you read the detailed guidelines that are on the department's website. The guidelines go into a lot of detail about what makes you eligible. Overall, though, there are three main criteria that you need to meet. Firstly, that you're an international student enrolled in a full-time English language course here in Perth that runs at least 20 weeks in length. Or if your course is shorter than that, you're still eligible if it's part of an approved pathway to higher education or vocational studies. Secondly, you arrived in Perth and started studying in person here after the 28th of June 2022. And thirdly, that you're studying English at any CRICOS registered English language provider. If you are on an approved pathway, do make sure that you provide copies of all of your enrolment documents. Now, international students will have to fill out an application form to get the ELICOS bursary. So how do they prove that they're eligible for it? Well, there are two main pieces of information that you have to provide to the government to show you're eligible. Firstly, every international student entering Australia has a form called a confirmation of enrolment, often called a COE. You need this form to get your student visa, and this form shows that you are enrolled at a particular institution and it shows how long your course is. You'll be asked to upload a copy of your COE when you apply for the bursary payment. If you have enrolled in a number of courses, either one after another or as part of a pathway into university, you should upload all of your COE documents. The second piece of evidence that you need is a copy of your travel documents. These could be your travel itinerary or your ticket or a boarding pass that includes your name, your flight details and your arrival date in WA. You must be in Perth to apply for this subsidy, so this is evidence that you use to show that this is the case. Now, one thing to be aware of, it is really important that all of the documents you provide with your application show your full name and that the names that are on your forms are the same name that you put on your application. Now, I understand that students have been asking the question about an Australian bank account because it is important that you have an Australian bank account or you can't get paid the ELICOS bursary. That actually means that the payments are being made by the state government and they'll be made into a bank here in Australia. They won't be sent offshore. But by Australian bank account, we're not talking specifically about an Australian-owned bank. It could be that your existing bank from your home country operates here in Australia, as long as your bank has an Australian BSB code, which is the 6-digit code that all Australian banks and branches have. You may find your own bank could be suitable. Now, I did a quick Google search on Australian BSB codes and got a list of 63 of the most popular banks operating here in Australia. If you do the same, you may find that your home bank account has a branch here, and you can apply to have an Australian bank account that way. Or you can open an account at one of the many Australian banks around Perth. You will need an Australian bank account in the future, especially if you're looking to get a job here, because employers in Australia pay directly into bank accounts. Now, another question that people ask, is there anything that students need to have to hand to fill the application form in? What else do they need to provide? Well, as well as filling in your personal details and providing the information I've mentioned, you need to provide your student number from the institution that you're studying at and your unique student identifier. Unique student identifier is the number that all students in Australia get from the Commonwealth Government. If you don't yet have a USI or unique student identifier, the guidelines for this bursary do give you a link and show you how to get one. One question people ask is, does everything need to be to hand before we start filling in the application form? And the answer is no, not really. It does make it a little easier if you do, and the guidelines will tell you in detail what you need. But if you start the application form and then realise you need to get something or you need to check something, you can save the form and go back to it later. While you do have until the deadline to submit the form, which is the 26th of October 2022, it is better to submit early to make sure you're one of the first 2,000 people to apply. You can also come into Study Perth's International Student Hub anytime Monday to Friday for the next 6 weeks to speak to a member of the government team managing the bursary. They've set up a help desk in our hub, and that's there for you to ask questions. So do come in and have a chat to them. Another question that students often ask is how long it will take to receive their payment. Once you've applied for the $1,500 payment, the government department will undertake an assessment of your application. This is to make sure you are who you say you are and that you are eligible. As a final check, your education provider is asked to confirm your enrolment and confirm when you've successfully completed at least 10 weeks of the 20-week course, or for shorter courses that you've started your second course that the ELICOS was a pathway into, and then you get paid. But don't be concerned if the process takes a little while. The government is not trying to exclude you from payment. They just have to be very thorough, as they are using taxpayers' money and they have a lot of rules that they need to follow. Students have asked us, can they ask questions of the government department as they're filling out the application form? And the answer is yes. You can contact the department if you have questions. The guidelines will have an email address for you to send your questions to. But again, you can also come into our Study Perth Student Hub anytime in the next 6 weeks on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or Friday, and you can have a chat with a member of the team at the help desk. They're here to help you apply. Finally, people have asked us about other payments that the WA government has got for international students. And I will say that there is another payment program for international students. It's the government's $1,500 accommodation subsidy. In this case, you need to be studying in WA for a course that's at least a year in length, and you need to be studying full-time, starting again in semester 2. If you are enrolled in English as a pathway to another course that runs for at least 1 year or 2 semesters, you could find yourself eligible to apply for both payments. So do go onto the website for the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation and have a look at the guidelines for the other payment program as well. I hope you found this information useful, and we'll also publish more information on our website, and there'll be links to the guidelines and application forms as well. Thank you. Bye.